a terrifying truth buried for over 2,000 years. No one knew. I don't have much time left. My hands tremble, my memory is worn out, and my eyes are just two flickering lights of a life long lived. But if I don't tell, no one will. And if no one tells, people will forever believe that the mother of Jesus was a perfectly beautiful image, like the stained glass in a chapel window. Number she once screamed herself hoarse. She once knelt on cracked earth and begged to die in place of her son. She once wanted to end her life. I know, because I was the one who wrested the knife from her hand. The mother of him. Her real name was Mary. When I first met her, she was just a frail girl, her face not as beautiful as people now claim. She was skinny, sunburned, with calloused hands from harvesting grain for the wealthy families in town. Mary's father had died in a landslide, and her mother was paralyzed, bedridden. Every day Mary worked from dawn till dusk to earn a few coins for bread and medicine. I was a servant in a priestly household. Mary often came to wash clothes at the well behind the house. I was nearly 10 years older than her, but I had never seen anyone with such sorrowful eyes, as if she had seen something far too great for such a small frame to carry. One time I asked, "Little one, what is your greatest wish?" Mary was silent for a while. Then she quietly said, "I want to be chosen to do something greater than myself." I laughed, but then I stopped, because what she wished for did come, and it was so great, the world would never be the same again. That night, I heard Mary scream. I ran over, thinking there was a thief, but the room was empty. Mary was curled up in a corner, drenched in sweat. She said, "I saw a light, then a voice, telling me I would bear a son." I was about to fetch the priest to perform an exorcism, but Mary gripped my hand, her gaze deadly serious. "It wasn't a dream. I'm truly pregnant, but I've never been with anyone." That sentence, dear reader, chilled me to the bone. No one believed Mary, not even her own mother. She slapped Mary so hard she bled from her mouth, calling her a disgrace. Mary was cast out, forced to sleep beneath an old olive tree. No one dared to shelter her. The villagers whispered, "That girl's gone mad, or possessed." She didn't cry. I still remember those eyes, as if she knew. From now on, she would no longer be a girl, but a sign. We wandered all through Bethlehem, seeking shelter to give birth. No house opened its doors. No one would offer space to a woman about to deliver. That night was freezing cold. Mary knelt beneath the sky, clutching her belly, groaning in pain. I panicked, searching desperately. Finally, a kind shepherd pointed us to an abandoned stable. Jesus was born there. There was no angelic music, no divine light, only Mary's screams of agony. And me, the servant girl, delivering the baby with trembling hands, wiping blood with an old cloak. When the child let out his first cry, I cried before he did. I stayed with them for years after, in a small hut outside Nazareth. Joseph, Mary's husband, was a gentle, quiet man. He never asked much about the pregnancy, but I once saw him cry silently at night, in front of a wooden cross he carved himself. Jesus grew up like any other child, yet unlike any of them. He had no friends. No one wanted to play with a boy born of a woman without a husband. Mothers pulled their children away when he approached. Once, a boy threw a stone at Jesus and shouted, "Demon child, go to hell." He didn't cry. He turned his face away and murmured something I couldn't hear. But that night, his mother, Mary, did cry. She clung to me like a child. Why must my son endure all of this? I didn't know how to answer, because even I had once thought perhaps this was God's punishment for someone. No one is born this way, unless heaven intends to punish them. When Jesus turned 8, something happened that I have never dared tell anyone. That was the night I found Mary standing by a dry well, where many women had taken their lives. She wore a white cloth, a knife in her hand. I screamed, "What are you doing? Are you mad?" Mary turned around, tears flooding her face. She didn't shout or scream. She just said one sentence that shattered me. "My son doesn't deserve to live in a world like this. If God wants to take him back, I'll go first to tell him." I lunged, tearing the knife from her grasp. We wrestled, rolling on the ground like two crazed women. At last, I held her, both of us bleeding. Mary wailed, as though centuries of agony erupted in one moment. From that night on, I stood guard over her sleep. Jesus had strange powers, but no one called them miracles. Once, I saw him place his hand on a sparrow with a broken wing, and the bird flew away, healed. Another time, I burned myself with boiling water. Jesus touched my wound, and the pain vanished as if it had never been. But when I told the villagers, they didn't believe. They said, "You old fool, don't bring your devil tricks to us." I said nothing, and Jesus remained silent, never claiming to be chosen. He just kept working, kept being rejected. Then came a special night when Jesus turned 12. I remember clearly it rained, a torrential downpour the likes of which Nazareth rarely saw. We lost sight of Jesus after the temple ceremony. Mary went mad. She ran through the town screaming his name. I too ran into the dark alleys, holding a lantern, heart pounding. Eventually, I found him. Jesus was sitting alone in a cave, soaked, pale, holding his head. I thought he was ill, but no. He whispered, "I saw the light." I asked, "What light?" Jesus looked at me, his eyes no longer those of a child, the light from a place beyond time. I heard a voice calling, and I am no longer afraid. I trembled. I knew. That night he ceased to be the boy I once lulled to sleep. He had awakened. From then on, Jesus grew quieter. He helped the villagers fix homes, mend nets, build furniture, asked for no pay, never sought thanks. He was still hated, still cursed. Someone even threw feces at our door. But Mary no longer broke down. She seemed to have accepted it, no longer asking why. Each night she prayed in silence, no words, no tears. I once asked her, "Do you no longer suffer?" Mary smiled, her first smile in years. I still hurt, but I no longer let the pain lead me. Now I recount all this, not for your pity, and certainly not for worship. I tell this because the truth should not be hidden behind golden paintings in cathedrals. The Mother of God was not born a saint. She once wanted to die, was once called a whore, once kicked in the belly while pregnant, once nearly jumped into a well, once screamed beside a child the world rejected, and then she stood up. So if you, reading this now, feel like you have nothing left to hold on to, remember this: Jesus was not born in light. He was born from the deepest pit of despair, of a woman no one believed in. When Jesus was 16, he once asked me, "Auntie, why does everyone hate me?" I didn't answer. But now, at the end of my life, I can finally tell him and you, because when light first shines, it hurts people's eyes. I am the last maid who ever touched the dirt-covered feet of Jesus and the shattered heart of his mother. Please remember this, because those who remember will never feel alone again.
I am Marcus, a Roman soldier, one of those ordered to arrest Jesus. But I never understood why my heart trembled when he looked at me that night. A gaze without blame, without fear, but as if he already knew everything. He knew I would betray myself. He knew I would tell this truth on a day when the world believed it already understood him. And now, having deserted the army and living in seclusion on a hillside in Gethsemane, I recount what I saw, because I was the first witness. They say Jesus was arrested for declaring himself the Son of God, for inciting the people to revolt, for being a threat to the Roman Empire. But I know it wasn't Caesar who gave the order. It was the priests. He was betrayed, not by soldiers, but by one of his own, Judas Iscariot. He didn't say much, but that night his eyes were darker than a bottomless pit. When he walked into the Garden of Gethsemane, I thought he came to pray. But when he stepped forward and kissed Jesus, and I heard the Lord say, "Are you betraying the Son of Man with a kiss?" My heart shook, because I realized we weren't arresting a rebel. We were arresting someone who knew his fate and didn't run. Not in the temple, not among the crowds. Jesus was arrested in a garden at night, beneath the shadows of olive trees, under the dim silver of moonlight cast over the cold earth. Gethsemane, where he had prayed until he bled, pleading, "Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me." He did not run. He did not resist. I saw a man who willingly walked into the darkness. We took him to Caiaphas's house. In the cold basement, Jesus was bound, not with rope, but with leather cuffs inscribed with curses by the priests. I had seen those used only for those deemed defilers of doctrine. I stood guard outside. But one night, I heard whispers from the basement, voices not human. "Whose son are you? Of the light or the other one?" I shivered, because I knew there was only one person in that room, Jesus. From Caiaphas, he was dragged to the governor, Pontius Pilate. Pilate questioned him. He did not answer. Then Pilate asked, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus simply said, "You say so." That sentence made Pilate lose control. History says he washed his hands to avoid guilt, but I know he saw something in Jesus' eyes that made him afraid to convict and afraid to release. A guard named Silvius, big, cold-hearted, was the first to escort Jesus after his arrest. But just hours later, the man clawed his own face and screamed through the night, "His eyes, they won't close. He sees everything. He's in my head." He died 3 days later, eyes open. No one could shut them. Beneath the prison in Jerusalem where Jesus spent his last night, the guards found a strange symbol etched into the wall, carved with fingernails. No one dared touch it. Since that night, every blood moon, that symbol bleeds. An old priest said that on the night Jesus was arrested, all the oil lamps in the temple went out at the same time, with no wind, no people nearby. And ever since, on that exact day each year, the temple lights briefly flicker and go dark. No one can explain it. Golgotha, or the place of the skull, was no ordinary execution site. It's where restless souls linger. People whisper that on moonless nights, white shapes drift across the hill. When we escorted Jesus up the hill, I walked behind him, and I swear the ground beneath me was ice cold, though the sun blazed above. Jesus fell 3 times. Each time he did not cry out, but with each fall, a flock of crows appeared on the horizon, circling the hill, drawn by something unseen. I've never seen that happen to any other condemned man. We nailed him between 2 thieves, and I remember clearly, when the cross was raised, the sky went black instantly. The sun vanished, not clouds. It was as if light itself had been swallowed. His final words made me weep, not for their meaning, but the sound of his voice, trembling in pain and despair. Jesus, the one who worked miracles, healed the lame, raised the dead, now felt abandoned. I remember how he looked up when he said it, not in anger, but as if searching for someone and not finding them. When Jesus took his last breath, the ground shook. None of us were ordered to kneel, but every guard did, not out of fear, but because something had just left this world. The temple walls cracked, and according to the priests, The veil separating the Holy of Holies tore from top to bottom, a thing that could not happen without supernatural force. I will not name him, but you must know this. The soldier ordered to thrust his spear into Jesus' side to confirm his death. When the spear touched him, blood and water flowed. But what stunned everyone was this. Jesus' right eye opened and stared directly at that soldier, though his body was already lifeless. That man screamed as if possessed, had to be bound and taken away. He never spoke coherently again, only repeated, "I saw him. He still sees me." They say Jesus' body was buried in Joseph of Arimathea's tomb, but there's a 12-hour gap in all records. Never explained. I know, because I was assigned to guard the tomb the first night, and I swear on what little honor I have left. The tomb trembled in the dark, and there was a whisper from within, in a language not Hebrew, not Latin. I did not understand it, but I knew. It was not human speech. Years later, long after I left the army, I found one of the women who followed Jesus, Mary Magdalene. She was not old, but her hair was nearly white. When I asked her, "Did he really rise?" she did not answer directly. She placed a charred piece of cloth in my hand. There was blood on it, and a strange symbol, not from any alphabet. She said, "This is not the blood of an ordinary man. This is blood transformed by the Holy Spirit and also touched by darkness. We thought the Lord had died, but us and others are searching for him, not to worship, but to claim what he left behind." Jesus was not arrested for madness, not for rebellion. He was arrested because he didn't belong to this world. He carried a light that darkness could not bear. And that night in Gethsemane, we thought we came to capture him. But truly, he stepped forward to embrace his fate. No one captured him. We were just fulfilling a script, already written. If I lie in a single word, may the heavens silence me forever. But if I speak the truth, then now you know, we did not kill a man. We crucified the last holy thing left on this earth. Marcus, former Roman soldier. That night, we thought we were the victors. I bore the Roman eagle on my chest. I once believed there was no power greater than the empire, no one mightier than the sword. But I was wrong. I held the chains. I drove the nails into a man whom I still don't fully understand. He died, but a part of me died with him. Then 3 days later, rumors spread. He had risen. I did not believe it. But that night, in a stone chamber beneath the earth, I saw a light flood the room. Not from torches, not from moon or stars. A figure stood in the doorway. That light did not blind me. It made me see my sins. I knelt. But when I looked up, he was gone. Years later, I am no longer a soldier. I live in a nameless desert, writing this with blood and tears. Not to confess but to warn. There are things people call history, but are merely lies repeated too many times. Jesus was not killed. He gave himself as the final key to open the door between life and death, between sin and truth. And if one day you hear a whisper in the night calling your name, don't turn around, kneel, because maybe he is watching. I shared a prison cell with that man, and what I saw has kept me awake for 30 years. I was 64 when I told this story. And I swear, if I lie with even one word, may heaven seal my mouth forever. I was not a good man. When I was arrested, I was an armed thief, breaking into homes in the middle of the night. I once stabbed a man over a loaf of bread, and when the Roman soldiers threw me in prison, I thought my life was over. But I met him. No, not just another prisoner. Him, the one the guards whispered about as King of the Jews, the one the crowds outside called a deceiver. But me, I had never seen anyone like him. The day they brought him in, I was slumped in a corner, hands bound behind my back. I remember it clearly, because the sky was so gray, as if something was wrong with the heavens themselves. They threw him into the cell like a rotting sack. He hit the stone floor hard, blood dripping from his mouth onto his tunic, coughing blood and sand. But what chilled me wasn't the sight, it was his eyes. He didn't look like a man about to die. He didn't look like someone betrayed. He looked like He already knew everything. The first night was hell. I was beaten. Caius, a notorious Roman guard, took joy in torturing prisoners before supper. But he wasn't beaten for fun. He was beaten to see if he would resist. A whip with 3 tails and hooks made from sheep bones. Every strike tore his flesh like wet paper. I turned my face away, but I could still hear the blood splatter on the stone. He didn't scream. I swear to God he didn't scream. Only once I heard a sharp breath, but not from pain. Someone had whispered into his ear, "If you are truly the Son of God, why not call angels to rescue you?" I thought he would reply, but no. He just closed his eyes and his lips released a sound in a language I didn't understand. It felt like a prayer, but it carried sorrow, not hope. Caius laughed. "Who's he praying to?" A blind fantasy? I dared not speak, because I saw, through the blood, his flesh was faintly glowing. This is the part that's haunted me for 30 years. On the third night, when the prison was black as pitch, I woke to someone singing. No, not singing. A sound that wasn't from this world. Gentle like mist, echoing like stones breaking underwater. I turned and saw him, sitting up, eyes open, gazing toward a hole in the ceiling where light leaked in. I whispered, "You're still alive?" He turned and looked at me, and I saw no blood on his face, no wounds, only a gentle glow, making me feel like I had never truly lived until that moment. He spoke, for the first time in 3 nights. "Are you afraid?" I didn't answer, because I was crying. After the third night, the prison changed. Not because the guards grew kinder, not because we were fed more, but because something in the air had shifted. A scent like burnt ash and rusted iron filled the halls. And every night I heard whispers, though no one was speaking. Whispers not from mouths, from the walls, from the chains, from the shadows behind the bars. "You are beside him. You will be taken. Do not sleep near him. Something watches, but not the guards." I began to doubt myself. Maybe I'd gone mad like so many prisoners. But then one night, Bartus, a man who had survived 5 other prisons, screamed, "Don't let him look at you when you sleep. Don't let him look." And the next morning, Bartus was dead. No wounds, no blood, no signs of torture. But his eyes were wide open, as if he'd seen something that a soul cannot survive. I'll never forget the 6th night, a night none of us in that prison would ever forget. Rain began to fall. Not normal rain, but black rain, water dripping from the ceiling like burning oil. The guards ran for cover, but we were locked inside in the stench of burning and cold. I backed into a corner, shaking. He remained silent. But just then, the massive stone door creaked open, without anyone touching it. No footsteps, no keys, just a gust of freezing wind. And I saw a shadow standing